Kanada bak. Agyanam timirandasya Gyananjana salakaya Chaksurunmilitam yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tvadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadavaktaya Namo Namah Yam Pravarjantam Manupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayano Viraka Taruva Juhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Banedos Tam Sarva Bhuta Hridayam Mone Manatosmi Bhaktya Vina Aparada Lakshay Chiptasya Kamadi Tarangamadi Kripamai Tvam Sharanam Prapadyam Brinde Namaste Charanaravindam Tavaivasmi Najivami tam vina iti vidyaya radhe tam nayamam charanantike. Are you sure you want to be all the way down there?
I'm not sure about that.
How about more of it? My peripheral vision. What am I up to?
Assuming that more people are coming.
I offer my unlimited obeisances in the dust of the lotus feet of my most worshipful Diksha Gurudev. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad. You can take the paper. Isn't it over? Astotra Sat Shishimad Shalabhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. And the same unlimited obeisances in the dust of the lotus feet of my most worshipful Shiksha Gurudev. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad. Astotra Sat Shishimad Shalabhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. To Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj, to our Param Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Pragyan K. Srila Goswami Maharaj, and Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, to all of his divine associates and all the assembled devotees. So here we are, jumping into our time machine, and here we are 5,000 years ago in Naimisharanya. Listening to the conversation, personally listening to the conversation between Shonaka and Sutta Goswami, who's telling about the conversation now between Bhishma and Yudhisthira, when Bhishma Dev is lying down on the bed of arrows in the place of massacre, the Battle of Kurukshetra. And first we're going to start out. All right, we're going to start out by continuing to hear Srila Prabhupada's singing of Queen Kunti's prayers. Huh? Just put it in the middle, I'll find the verse. Louder. Chapter 8.
Somewhere.
35 coming up. Let's review of the first verse. Review of her first verse.
मधुपते प्रति रतिमोद्वहता दद्या गंगो
without being diverted to anyone else.
Shri Krishna Krishna Sakha Krishna Bhavanidhu Rajannavansha Dahana Navavasvarijam Govindam Govindam Surashriya Haravataram Yogeshwarakhya Guru Bhagavan Namaste Shri Krishna Krishna Sakha Krishna Bhavanidhu Rajannavamsa Dahana Navavasvarijam
Okay, back to one. Tvatyam Ishwaram Pradipekaram Alaksham Sarvabhutam He's inside and outside, everywhere, but invisible to all. Okay. Wasn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
And he's not just like when we say one verse after another, it's always in the same tune, but he just goes off into his own reverie of trance, sometimes repeating a verse, sometimes repeating a line. It's just his heart. You can feel his heart there in merging with Kunti's heart. Because Kunti is, everybody in Dwarka is an expansion of everybody in Vrindavan. And his heart is one with Vrindavan. And so it's easy to understand the hearts of the expansions. Now we're going to utter the verses glorifying the Bhagavatam and then begin. Taramak prochita kaita vocha paramo nimatsaranam satam Vedyam vastavamachravamolanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamunikute Kimba Pararishvara Sadyo Dyavarujate Kutatibe Shusu Subhistakshana Nigamakopataro Galitam Palam Shukamakaram Ratadravasam Yutam Pivata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam Mohuraho Rasika Vibhavaka Nayam Pravachantam Petam Apeta Krityam Ayano Virahakataruva Juhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Dos Tang Sarvabhutardayam Muni Manatosmi Yaksvanubhavam Akila Shruti Saramekam Adhyatma Deepamasi Sirsatam Tamodam Samsarana Karunaya Aparana Guyam Ayami Gurum Muninam Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamutiraya Shrinvata Swakata Krishna Panya Shravana Kirtana Vedantasto Yavajani Vidunoti Sarutsitam Krishne Swadharma Pakate Dharma Gyana Divisaha Kalonasta Vishamesha Puranarko Dinodita Anartho Pasamam Shakshad Bhakti Yogam Maroksaje Lokasya Janata Vidvangs Chakre Sattvata Samhita Navami Devam Karunanidanam Tamalavarnam Suhitavataram Apara Samsara Samudra Setam Vajahame Bhagavatam Swarupam. Okay, so here we are. What verse are we up to? Hari Prabhu Haridas?
1919.
1919. And what's happening now? Bhishma Dev is trying to console Yudhisthira. Just imagine if you thought that on your account millions of men, women, and children were killed. How would you feel? So that's how he felt. So Bhishma is trying to tell them, I'm going to reread 18. He's expressing how Krishna is the controller of everything. So there's no need for, especially the controller and organizer of the activities of his devotees. Eshavai Bhagavan Shakshad Adyo Narayana Pumam Mahayan Mayaya Lokan Gurascharati Vishnishu. This Sri Krishna is no other than the inconceivable original personality of Godhead. He is the first Narayan, the supreme enjoyer, but he is moving amongst the descendants of Vrishni, King Vrishni, just like one of us, and he's bewildering us by his self-created energy. 19. Asyanubhavan Bhagavan Vedaguya Tamam Shiva Devarshi Narada Shakshad Bhagavan Kapilo Nirpa. O King, Lord Shiva, Narada, the sage among the demigods, and Kapila, the incarnation of Godhead, all know very confidentially about his glories through direct contact. Yam manyase matuleyam priyamitram sahritamam akaro sachivan rutam sohridaratasaratī. O King, that personality whom, out of ignorance only, you thought to be your maternal uncle, your very dear friend, well-wisher, counselor, messenger, benefactor, etc., is that very personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. See, so sometimes they know it, sometimes they don't. Sarvat manasamodrisho yadvayasyanuhankrite tat kritam mativaishamyam niradyasya nakakshat. Being the absolute personality of Godhead, he is he is present in everyone's heart. He's equally kind to everyone, and he's free from the false ego of differentiation. Therefore, whatever he does is free from material inebriety. He is equally balanced. Tatapyakanta bhaktesu pasya bhupanukampitam yanme sum satyajita sakshat Krishna darshanamata. Yet, despite his being equally kind to everyone, he has graciously come before me. Because you remember Krishna, all the Pandavas, sages from all over the universe were there sitting by Bhishma Dev as he was lying down on the bed of arrows, has graciously come before me while I'm ending my life, for I am his unflinching devotee. The personality of Godhead who appears in the mind of the devotee by attentive devotion and meditation, and by chanting of the holy name, releases the devotee from the bondage of fruitive activities at the time of his quitting his material body. Sadeva Devo Bhagavan Pratikshatam Kalevaram Yavadidam Himoniyaham Prasannahasa Lunalocanalasam Mukam Bhajodhyana Patas Chaturvya. May that Lord, who is four-handed and whose beautifully decorated lotus face, with eyes as red as the rising sun, is smiling, kindly await me at the moment when I quit this body. May he be there to greet me when I leave this body. Sutta Goswami said, here's the Maharaj Parikit's reply. Maharaj Parikit, after hearing Bhishma speak in the appealing tone, asked him in the presence of all great rishis about the essential principles of various religious duties.
Wait, Parikshit or Yudhisthira?
Yudhisthira, did I say Parikit?
Yeah.
Sorry. Maharaj Yudhisthira, after hearing, because he's the one who's been lamenting, bereaving. All right, so now how do I know what to do as a king? Tell me about the central principles of virtuous religious duties. At Maharaj Yudhisthira's inquiry, Bhishma first defined all the classification of castes and orders of life in terms of the individual's qualifications, meaning Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, householder, brahmachari, varnaprastha, sannyas. Then he systematically, in twofold divisions, described counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. I don't know what that means. Let's see if the next verse says so. No. What was it? Counteraction by detachment and interaction by attachment. Not sure what that means. So the conception of the four castes and orders is planned by the Lord himself. Bhagavad Gita 4:13 is to accelerate transcendental qualities of the individual so that he may gradually realize his spiritual identity and thus act accordingly to get free from material bondage. So the Varnashram Dharma is prescribed for a civilized human being to train him to successfully terminate human life. Self-realization is distinguished from the life of lower animals. Here are some things that distinguish a human being from an animal. The animals, because everybody does eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. So here's the difference. Human beings, qualification, not to become angry, not to lie, to equally distribute wealth, to forgive, to beget children only by one's legitimate wife, to be pure in mind and hygienic in body, not to be inimical towards anyone, to be simple and to support servants and subordinates. One cannot be called a civilized person without acquiring the above mentioned preliminary, and those are just preliminary qualifications. What are they? Asante, you want to start us off? Can you contribute to the 9 human qualities?
Not becoming angry, not lying.
Don't look.
Not becoming angry, not lying.
Good.
Equally distributing wealth.
Wait, forget it. I want somebody who is going to remember it.
To
Okay.
not become inimical towards anyone, equally distribute wealth, to beget children only by one's legitimate spouse, What are we up to?
To be hygienic of mind and body.
Pure in mind and hygienic in body. What do you do with servants and subordinates?
What? Support them.
Support them. That also includes people who come here who, want guidance and will act under guidance. So we want to support them. Okay, what else? You missed one.
Simple.
Simple?
To be simple.
Mhm.
Where does it say to be simple?
8.
8, to be simple. And one other,
Not to be inimical towards anyone.
not to be inimical, and one other that
Mm.
we forgot. It's a hard one. Maybe that's why we forgot it.
Easily distribute well.
We did that.
To forgive.
To forgive.
Oh,
I was once complaining about a devotee to Prabhupada. And then in the middle of my complaining, I said, because, the influence of being with a pure devotee, I said, well, should I just forget about it? And then Prabhupada said, yes, you have to forgive and forget. Otherwise, how can you live?
mm.
27. Dana dharman, raja dharman, moksha dharman, vivagasha, Sri dharman, bhagavad dharman, samasa vyasa yogina. He then explained by divisions acts of charity, the pragmatic activities of a king, and activities for salvation. Then he described the duties of women and devotees, both briefly and extensively. There was something with Draupadi. Oh, so he's giving all these things about religion, religious duties, and Draupadi's there, and she's smiling, but she's not smiling like this, because she knows the religious principle of a woman is to be shy, so she has her mouth covered, but she's smiling. And Bhishma said, why are you smiling? This was in a lecture of Prabhupada, and she said, I'm smiling because, you're telling us all these principles of religion, but where was your religion when they were stripping me naked? You didn't say anything, trying to strip me naked. Then he described the occupational duties of different orders and statuses of life. Then he said, well, the thing is that because I was eating at the house of Duryodhan, so I was contaminated by the food, and the food turned into blood. Food turns into blood. Here we have a naturopathy doctor, yes. Food's supposed to turn into blood. That's true.
Wow, yes, I suppose that is true.
So he said, but so I had bad
Turn
blood.
into everything, right?
Huh?
Food becomes your
Becomes
body,
everything.
so everything.
Right. So the thing is that it turned into my blood, and so I had bad blood. So with the bad blood and my contamination from being dependent on them and eating at their house, I was stupid. I lost my brains. But now with all this blood draining out of me, now that all the arrows are in me, now I can think straight.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Mhm.
So then, huh?
What bloodletting is there for a legitimate medical procedure?
Blood what?
For consciousness.
Blood what?
Bloodletting.
What's that?
It's an old fashioned like leeches and like things to suck the blood out of you. Anyway, it's just some medical term.
There's a cupping thing too where they do that on your back and it
Suck the blood out.
draws blood out of you.
What is the connection with this?
That it's a legitimate procedure for purifying consciousness.
Oh, for purifying consciousness, it's an actual medical procedure.
Yeah.
So then he described the occupational duties
Sorry.
of different orders and statuses of life, citing instances from history, for he was himself acquainted with the truth. While Bhishma Dev was describing occupational duties, the sun's course ran into the northern hemisphere. This period is desired by mystics who die at their will. Actually, he had a benediction that he couldn't die unless he willed it. Thereupon that man who spoke on different subjects with thousands of meanings and who fought on thousands of battlefields and protected thousands of men, stopped speaking and, being completely free from all bondage, withdrew his mind from everything else and fixed his wide open eyes upon the original personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who stood before him, four-handed, dressed in yellow garments that glittered and shined. So, why does, in the purport, there's a numbering of 8.5 to 8.15, talking about how to think of Krishna at the time of death. And whoever, at the time of death, quits his body remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Prabhupada explained that, I forgot. Oh, Prabhu, you're not a book. You're Prabhupada yourself, you're Bhishma Devi yourself, you're Pandavas, Draupadi, sages yourself, Sutta, sages of Naimisharanya, Sukdeva Parikit, all of you be merciful upon us and reveal to us the deep meanings of what you're saying as we sit directly at your lotus feet and give us realization of what you're saying. So now, instructions for the time of death. But Prabhupada said that if you don't book a ticket ahead of time on the airplane, there's not a great chance that there's going to be empty seats. Something they call out, like if there's empty seats, standby. Then you have to go on standby, and it's not extremely likely that you'll get a seat. So you have to book your ticket ahead of time, isn't it? Similarly, if we don't think of Krishna during our life, it'll be very difficult when all the material desires of our life come to the forefront of our mind to think of Krishna. When, the breathing is stopping, the heart is stopping, the whole body becomes filled with mucus, the person becomes filled with fear. It's very difficult unless we've been practicing. And whoever at the time of death quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Whatever state of being one remembers at the time of death, when he quits his body, that state he will surely attain without fail. Therefore, Arjuna, always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me, and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. He who meditates on the Supreme Lord, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, O Partha, is sure to reach me. One should meditate on the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he who's the oldest, the controller, smaller than the smallest, means even smaller than our own soul, the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and being transcendental, is beyond the material nature. One who at the time of death fixes his life air between his eyebrows and in full devotion engages himself in remembering the Lord will certainly attain him. Okay, we're going to stop there because all the rest of the verses are very similar. In the lecture by Srila Bharati Maharaj that we were reading from yesterday about Ramchandra Kaviraj, he was stating how important it is to observe these titis, appearance and disappearance days. And so he quoted one verse which said that he who is invisible and inconceivable to the material senses becomes conceivable to one who serves Vaishnavas. What? What? What are you trying to say, Vasanti?
You mentioned the appearance and disappearance days.
Right?
I said, speaking of which, isn't today somebody's day?
Is it? Can you check to see if today is somebody's day? Because we don't want to miss it.
No, tomorrow.
What is tomorrow?
Narahari Siva Vigraha.
Narahari Seva Vigraha. Very interesting. And Bhakti Baba Puri Goswami Maharaj. Okay, so we'll have a nice day tomorrow. So then Krishna says, not Krishna, Sutta Goswami says, by pure meditation, looking at Lord Sri Krishna, he at once was freed from all material inauspiciousness and was relieved of all bodily pains caused by the arrow wounds. Thus, all the external activities of his senses at once stopped, and he prayed transcendentally to the controller of all beings while quitting his material body. I think that this picture is here. We'll soon find out. Yes, this is a painting that I did. That it's not in the book. This story is not in the book. But Prabhupada told me the story when he was in New York. Told me to paint it, which is that, so he's lying on the bed of arrows, and he wants water. So he wants a pillow. So Duryodhana brings him a pillow and he rejects it. He said, I want a pillow from Arjuna. So Arjuna shot a bunch of arrows in the earth to be the arrows to come in his head. And that was the pillow he accepted. And then he wanted water. So Duryodhana wanted to get him water, but he refused to accept water from Duryodhana. And he said, I only want water from Arjuna. So Arjuna took his arrow and shot it on the earth. And then the Ganges river personified as Bhishma's mother. And as you can maybe see, the water is coming up from the earth and going into Bhishma's mouth. And here is Krishna standing before Bhishma with all the Pandavas and other great sages around the body of Bhishma. Now I lost my page and I lost my number. Let's see. 1931. So now Bhishma is going to make so many prayers to Krishna, who's standing right in front of him, glorifying Krishna in different ways, including the beloved of the gopis. By pure meditation, we read that one. Next is 32. Bhishma Dev said, let me now invest my thinking, feeling, willing, which were so long engaged in different subjects and occupational duties, in the all-powerful Lord Sri Krishna. He's always self-satisfied, but sometimes, being the leader of the devotees, he enjoys transcendental pleasure by descending on the material world, although from him only the material world is created. Amazing. Krishna is the intimate friend of Arjuna. He has appeared on this earth in his transcendental body, which resembles the bluish color of a tamal tree. His body attracts everyone in the 3 planetary systems. May his glittering yellow dress and lotus face, covered with the paintings of sandalwood pulp, be the object of my attraction, and may I not desire fruitive results. On the battlefield where Krishna attended Arjuna out of friendship, the flowing hair of Lord Krishna turned ashen due to the dust raised by the hoofs to the horses. And in Vrindavan, it also becomes grayish. Huh?
This is what I was asking you about yesterday.
What?
This Srila Vishnu Thakur purport about what's getting deeper.
All right. So while Vasanti's getting
I don't know what
her verse ready.
No.
No? What?
Like
What are you trying to say, Vasanti?
trying to say how Grandmother Bijman was knowing when about his pastimes with the Gopis.
What?
Never mind.
You already have the floor.
I don't want the floor.
All right. So Krishna's hair became ashen due to the hoofs, the dust raised by the hoofs of the horses. In Vrindavan, that happens too. How does his hair get
From the dust.
dusty? From the dust of the cows, yes. And his face also gets a thin layer of dust, and he becomes so attractive. The gopis' amorous desires increase when they see that. And he does that on purpose. That's why he's a cowherd boy. He has it all figured out. So on the battlefield where Krishna attended Arjuna out of friendship, the flowing hair of Lord Krishna turned ashen due to the dust raised by the hoofs of the horses. And because of his labor, beads of sweat wetted his face. All these decorations, intensified by the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows, were enjoyed by him. Let my mind thus go unto Krishna, because Krishna also likes chivalrous. Chivalry is one of the 12 rasas. In obedience to the command of his friend, Krishna entered the arena of the battlefield of Kurukshetra between the soldiers of Arjuna and Duryodhana, and while there, he shortened the lifespans of the opposite party by his merciful glance. That's what we mentioned yesterday. Just by looking at them and pointing them out, he shortened their lives. This was done simply by his looking at the enemy. Let my mind be fixed upon that Krishna. So everybody else thought that they were killing everybody, but it wasn't. It was Krishna. When Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance, upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battlefield, the Lord eradicated his ignorance by delivering transcendental knowledge, Bhagavad Gita. May his lotus feet always remain the object of my attraction. Fulfilling my desire and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up the wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, just as a lion goes to kill an elephant. He even dropped his outer garment on the way. So what does he mean? His promise was that he wasn't going to fight. He was just going to be the chariot driver. But Bhishma, his intention was that I'm going to fight so hard that if Krishna doesn't do something, I'm going to defeat Arjuna. So fulfilling my desire and sacrificing his own, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly, like a lion goes to kill an elephant. And this is the picture of that. Prabhupada didn't like when we made such long hair on Krishna. Unfortunately, I didn't find out till later. So in the art book, we cut his hair in all the places where his hair was long. Good job to the hair cutter, Kamala Milzek. May he, Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who awards salvation, be my ultimate destination. On the battlefield, he charged me, as if angry because of the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows. His shield was scattered, and his body was smeared with blood due to wounds. But that's just Krishna's play. And in Prabhupada's purport, there's one sentence that's in italics. The astounding feature of such dealings is that a devotee can please the Lord by playing the part of an enemy. Who else did that?
Utana.
Putana was not a devotee.
But she was
Giant, Vijay.
Huh? Jai and Vijay. By the influence of Yogamaya, they became so many people. Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, who else? Kamsa, not Kamsa. Ravana and Kumbhikarna, Dantavakra, and I forget who else. Dantavakra, Salva, maybe, I forget. Not Salva. Shishupal and Dantavakra. And most recently is Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. Jagai and Madai, yes. I know, I thought it would be Kamsa too. He must be somebody else great. Chankazi in Mahaprabhu's Leela. At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction be to Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot driver Arjuna, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms. So he wasn't only being merciful to Arjuna, anybody who saw him, because he was facing the enemies, attained salvation.
Why would such a great devotee as Vishnudev want his attraction to be to Sri Krishna instead of Sri Radha?
Because that's his relationship. He has Aishwarya mood towards Krishna. He's a Dwarkavasi. He knows about the gopis, but that's his particular relationship. Let my mind be fixed on Krishna, whose motions and smiles of love attracted the damsels of Brajabhumi. The damsels imitated the characteristic movements of the Lord after his disappearance from the rasa dance. I remember the old days, Prabhupada had us do so many paintings. And here it is. Didn't know how to paint very well, didn't understand how to make gopi dresses very well, but this is the gopis imitating the pastimes of Krishna when Krishna left the rasa dance.
Yeah, this is what I was asking about.
What?
that how is he knows that the Krishna's pastimes of the gopis are the highest. But yet he's in the Singapore, he's Grandpa usually.
So Vasanti is trying to ask that there's a commentary by Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur in Gurudev's Gita that although Bhishma Dev knows that the highest devotees are the gopis, how is he satisfied with his relationship as a Dwarkavasi, which is not as complete?
And how does he even know? I mean,
and how would he know?
You know what I mean? Like, because I remember reading, and I know you hate when we can't quote it exactly, but I remember reading that, like, when Krishna comes running and he sees, he's like in the blood and the sweat, and he's like seeing it as like Krishna's intimate relationship with the gopis. Or how did he know?
You're saying Bhishma?
Yeah.
When he's seeing Krishna with blood and sweat, he's thinking of the gopis? What?
Let me find it.
But in answer to your other question, everybody knows, but everybody's fully satisfied with their relationship. Mother Yasoda knows that Krishna loves Radharani the best, but she doesn't get envious of Radharani. The coward boys know that Krishna loves the gopis, and they try to help. The Priyanarm Sakas especially help in the amorous pastimes, but they're fully satisfied with their own relationship. There's no envy there like here. There is envy, but it's transcendental and full of love. And that you find amongst the various groups of gopis like Chandravali. So Kunti, like even when Krishna was fighting with Kamsa, the princesses in Mathura, they were glorifying the gopis. Satyabhama, she knows all about the gopis. Not all, but she knows about them. And Krishna wanted the queens to know about them, so they would develop more of a desire to love him higher.
Is it similar to how Uddhava didn't understand Krishna's love, the love of the gopis for Krishna until he saw them manifest?
Well, even when Uddhava saw the gopis, he still could not understand them. He couldn't understand how their suffering was the highest happiness. So he wanted to go back. He's ready to go back. But he understood that their love was much higher than his, because in Gurudev's words, he was looking up at Mount Everest from the bottom and his hat fell off his head from the back. Get it? You don't get it? If you look all the way up and you're wearing a hat, your hat can fall off the back. So the gopis were so high that his hat fell off his head from the back. At the Rajasuya sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhisthira, there was the greatest assembly of all the elite men of the world, the royal and learned orders. And in that great assembly, Lord Sri Krishna was worshipped by one and all as the most exalted. This happened during my presence, and I remembered the incident in order to keep my mind upon the Lord. So it is time to stop. So Haridas Prabhu, we're on verse 42 coming up. Are there any questions? Vasanti, you said there was questions on chat? Weren't there a few days ago? You lost it?
Yeah.
Poor Vasanti. There's poor Virag and poor Vasanti. Okay, so any questions from the live audience here? Speak now or hold your peace for the rest of the day till tomorrow.
Nope, that's
Gaur
Tuesday.
Premanandi. See you all Tuesday. Panchakalpataru Vyastra Kripa Sindhu Devacha. Vaishnavi. God willing, that is.
God willing. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna
Krishna.
Hare